Deep in the void of space, beyond the edges of known civilization, something extraordinary waited. The Galactic Federation's survey ship Starseeker drifted through the darkness, its powerful sensors scanning the empty regions between star systems. Captain Tom Miller stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main display screen. "Captain, we're picking up unusual energy readings," reported Jack, the ship's sensor operator. His fingers danced across the control panel as he refined the scan. "It's like nothing we've ever seen before." The object appeared on their screens, a massive structure that seemed to defy the laws of physics. It was perfectly geometric, its surface covered in patterns that shifted and changed as they watched. The alien crew members, representing various species from across the Federation, gathered around their stations with growing interest. "All species in the Federation have been exploring space for thousands of years," said First Officer Gray, a tall, silver-skinned being. "But none of our records mention anything like this." The Starseeker moved closer, its lights illuminating the mysterious object. It was roughly the size of a small moon, but instead of being solid, it seemed to be made of interconnected geometric shapes that moved in impossible ways. The surface rippled with energy patterns that resembled digital code, but were far more complex. Captain Miller ordered a full scan of the structure. "Send the data back to Federation headquarters. They'll want to see this immediately." Within hours, research vessels from various alien civilizations began arriving. The Federation's best scientists gathered to study the artifact. They brought their most advanced technology and brightest minds, confident they would unlock its secrets quickly. But the artifact had other plans. When the first research team tried to land on its surface, they found themselves unable to make contact. The geometric patterns would shift and change, making it impossible to find a solid landing point. When they attempted to scan its interior, their instruments returned contradictory readings. "It's as if it's testing us," said Dr. Reed, the human scientist aboard the Starseeker. "Every time we try something, it responds differently." The Federation's most advanced artificial intelligence systems attempted to decode the patterns on the artifact's surface. They failed. The greatest mathematical minds from a dozen worlds tried to understand its geometric transformations. They failed too. Then something unexpected happened. The artifact began to emit a signal, a complex pattern of energy that spread out across the galaxy like ripples in a pond. The signal wasn't random. It contained information, but in a form that none of the Federation's scientists could understand. "It's a message," Dr. Reed explained to Captain Miller. "But it's not just data. It's something more, something deeper." The Federation Council held an emergency meeting. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to discuss this development. Some saw the artifact as a threat, others as an opportunity, but all agreed that understanding it was crucial. "Whatever created this," First Officer Gray said, watching the artifact through the ship's viewport, "they were far more advanced than any civilization we know of. This could be the greatest discovery in the history of the Federation." As the days passed, more ships arrived. The space around the artifact became crowded with vessels from every corner of the Federation. Each brought new theories, new technologies, and new attempts to unlock its secrets. Each attempt failed in different, and often inexplicable ways. Then the signal reached Earth. Captain Miller was on the bridge when the news arrived. The artifact's energy patterns had changed the moment Earth received the signal. It was subtle, but unmistakable, like it had been waiting for this moment. "Something's different," Jack said from his sensor station. "The patterns, they're responding to Earth's presence in the network." The Federation Council was skeptical. Earth was one of the youngest civilizations in the galaxy. How could they be important to something so ancient and advanced? But as they would soon learn, being young had its advantages. Humanity was about to show the galaxy something it had never seen before, a completely different way of thinking. The greatest challenge in the history of the Federation was about to begin, and only Earth seemed to hold the key to understanding it. News of the artifact spread across Earth like wildfire. Governments, scientists, and ordinary people alike were captivated by images of the mysterious object transmitted from deep space. Unlike the more established alien civilizations, humans reacted with a mixture of fear, wonder, and intense curiosity. Dr. Anna Wright, Earth's leading expert in extraterrestrial communication, was quickly summoned to join the Federation research team. She arrived at the artifact aboard the Earth vessel Pioneer, feeling both excitement and intimidation as she prepared to work alongside aliens whose civilizations had been exploring space, while humans were still figuring out basic agriculture. "Welcome to the Star Seeker," Captain Miller said as Anna floated through the docking bay. "The Federation is skeptical about Earth's involvement, but I insisted you be here." Anna nodded, her eyes already fixed on the artifact visible through the viewport. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Beautiful." First Officer Gray repeated, confusion evident in his voice. "That's not a term our scientists have used. It's an enigma, possibly a threat." "Maybe that's the problem," Anna replied. "You're looking at it only as a puzzle to solve, not something to experience." The Federation had established a research base in orbit around the artifact. Scientists from 30 different species worked around the clock, applying their most advanced technologies and theoretical frameworks. Their frustration was palpable. 3 weeks of intensive study had yielded almost nothing. Anna approached her work differently. Rather than focusing solely on the artifact's mathematical properties or trying to decode its signals through pure logic, she observed its patterns with an artist's eye. She noticed how the geometric shapes seemed to flow like water, how the energy pulses carried emotional qualities that machines couldn't measure. "The artifact isn't just sending data," she explained during a research briefing. "It's expressing something." The alien scientists exchanged skeptical glances. The idea seemed absurd to beings who had built their civilizations on pure rationality. Dr. Wright, with all respect, said Chief Researcher Park, a purple-skinned mathematician from a highly logical species, "We need empirical analysis, not feelings." But Captain Miller had noticed something. "Let her continue," he said. Anna brought forward a team of human researchers with diverse backgrounds, not just scientists, but musicians, poets, and philosophers. Each brought a different perspective to the problem. They began working on what they called intuitive responses to the artifact's signals. The Federation scientists watched in bewilderment as the humans played music for the artifact, showed it artwork, and even performed improvised dances. Most thought it was nonsense, a waste of valuable research time. Then the artifact responded. During a session where a human musician played a simple melody, the artifact's energy patterns shifted. They began to mirror the rhythm of the music, then expanded upon it in ways that seemed almost like a conversation. "It's communicating," Anna exclaimed, "not with words or mathematics, but with patterns that evoke emotional responses." The alien researchers were stunned. Their highly advanced civilizations had evolved toward pure logic and efficiency, gradually losing the creative instincts that humans still possessed in abundance. They had approached the artifact as a code to be cracked, never considering it might be seeking a different kind of connection. "Humans are still closely connected to their evolutionary past," explained Dr. Reed to the Federation scientists. "We think both logically and intuitively. We create art that has no practical purpose. We imagine impossible things." First Officer Gray struggled to understand. "But these are primitive traits. Advanced civilizations outgrow such inefficient thinking." "Maybe that's exactly the point," Captain Miller suggested. "Maybe what you call primitive is exactly what the artifact is looking for." Over the following days, the artifact's responses to human interaction grew stronger. It began projecting images, not of star systems or mathematics, but landscapes, faces, and abstract patterns that stirred deep emotional responses. The Federation Council convened an emergency session. The idea that humans, newcomers to the galactic community, might succeed where the oldest and most advanced civilizations had failed was difficult for many to accept. Some saw it as an opportunity for collaboration, others as a threat to the established order. Meanwhile, Anna and her team continued their work. They weren't just solving a puzzle, they were building a relationship with something ancient and powerful. And with each passing day, the artifact seemed more eager to reveal its secrets, but only to those who could think beyond pure logic. The greatest challenge wasn't technological, it was perspective. Month into the research mission, the true nature of the artifact began to reveal itself. The research station orbiting the mysterious object had become divided. Alien scientists on one side with their advanced equipment and analytical methods, humans on the other with their unconventional approaches. Dr. Anna Wright stood before a holographic display showing the artifact's latest energy patterns. She had been tracking them for days, noticing how they seemed to tell a story rather than simply transmit data. "It's not testing our technology," she announced during the daily briefing. "It's testing our minds." Chief Researcher Park scoffed. "That's an illogical conclusion. The artifact is clearly a data storage device, or possibly a weapon. Then why has it resisted every attempt to analyze it that way?" Countered Anna. "Look at this pattern. It changed when we showed it contradictory information. It's interested in paradoxes." Captain Miller, who had been watching the growing tension between the research teams, stepped forward. "Dr. Wright might be onto something. The artifact seems to respond most when we present it with things that shouldn't make sense but somehow do." The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Mike, a human artist who had joined the research team, had been sketching optical illusions, drawings that could be seen in multiple ways depending on how you looked at them. When he displayed these near one of the artifact's sensors, the entire structure pulsed with new energy. "It's excited," Anna exclaimed, watching the readings spike. "Try another one." Mike showed the artifact more impossible drawings, staircases that went up forever, water that flowed uphill, shapes that couldn't exist in three-dimensional space. With each new paradox, the artifact's response grew stronger. First Officer Gray watched with growing interest. "Our species abandoned such visual tricks thousands of years ago. We saw them as flaws in perception, not worthy of study." "But that's exactly it," Anna said, her eyes bright with realization. "The ability to hold two contradictory ideas in mind simultaneously, to know something is impossible yet still be able to imagine it. That's uniquely human." The alien scientists observed as the humans began systematically testing which types of paradoxes and creative thinking triggered the strongest responses. Abstract art, poetry with multiple interpretations, music that created emotional responses through tension and release, all produced dramatic reactions from the artifact. Dr. Reed joined Anna at the main console. What if the creators of this artifact evolved beyond paradox? What if they became so logical that they lost something essential, the ability to think beyond the possible? The theory spread through the research station. The artifact wasn't a test of technological advancement, but of cognitive flexibility. The Federation species, in their long evolution toward logic and efficiency, had gradually lost the ability to think in ways that defied rational explanation. "Imagination," Anna said simply. "The artifact is testing our imagination." As if confirming her theory, the geometric patterns on the artifact's surface began to shift into new configurations. Sections that had been closed were now opening, revealing glimpses of an interior that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Captain Miller called an emergency meeting. "We need to report this to both the Federation Council and Earth. This changes everything we thought we knew about advanced civilizations." The news sent shockwaves throughout the Federation. Species that had considered humans primitive now faced the possibility that, in some crucial ways, humanity had retained abilities they had lost. It was a humbling realization for civilizations thousands of years older than Earth's. A team of human researchers prepared to enter the artifact now that it had begun opening itself. They would be the first beings to set foot inside the ancient structure. "We still don't know what's in there or why it was created," First Officer Gray warned. "This could be dangerous." Anna nodded. "Yes, but sometimes the greatest discoveries come from walking into the unknown. As the team prepared their expedition, the artifact continued to transform. Its surface now displayed images from human culture, art, architecture, and scenes from Earth's history, mixed with symbols no one recognized. It was as if it was learning from them even as they studied it. "Whatever we find in there," Captain Miller said, watching the preparation for the expedition, "it will change how we understand the universe and ourselves." The nature of the challenge was now clear. It wasn't about technology or power or even knowledge in the traditional sense. It was about the ability to think beyond the limits of what seems possible, to imagine new realities and hold contradictions in mind without rejecting them. And in that challenge, humanity had found its greatest strength. The Federation's Grand Council chamber had never been so tense. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to watch the live feed from the artifact. On massive screens, they observed as a small team of humans prepared to enter the mysterious structure that had resisted all alien attempts to understand it. "This is unprecedented," declared the High Counselor, a being from one of the oldest species in the galaxy. "Never before has a younger species succeeded where the ancients have failed." In a separate chamber adjacent to the council room, a special research division had been hastily assembled. Their mission: to understand why humans could interact with the artifact when other species could not. Dr. Lee, a neurobiologist from Earth, stood before a diverse group of alien scientists. On the display behind him were comparative brain scans, human brains alongside those of various Federation species. "The answer may lie in our evolutionary path," Dr. Lee explained, pointing to specific regions of the human brain. "Unlike most Federation species, humans evolved as both prey and predator. We developed problem-solving alongside instinct, logic alongside emotion." The alien scientists leaned forward, fascinated despite their skepticism. "Most advanced species in the Federation evolved toward pure efficiency," continued Dr. Lee. "You streamlined your thinking, eliminated cognitive contradictions, and optimized your neural pathways. But humans." He switched to a new image, a chaotic, colorful map of neural connections. "Humans never fully optimized. Our brains remain messy, contradictory, and inefficient. We dream when we sleep. We create art that serves no practical purpose. We tell stories about things that never happened." First Officer Gray, who had joined the research team, spoke up. "You're suggesting this inefficiency is actually an advantage." "Exactly," Dr. Lee nodded. "The artifact seems to respond to our ability to hold contradictory ideas simultaneously, to know something is impossible yet still imagine it." Back at the artifact, Anna and her team stood before an opening that had appeared in its surface. Beyond the threshold, space seemed to bend in impossible ways. It was like looking into an Escher painting made real, staircases that went up and down simultaneously, rooms that were both larger and smaller than the spaces they occupied. "It's a physical paradox," Anna whispered, her voice transmitting back to both the research station and the Federation Council. "It shouldn't be possible." Captain Miller watched from the research station. "Is it safe to enter?" "Logically, no," Anna replied. "But I think that's the point. We have to embrace the contradiction." Taking a deep breath, Anna stepped through the opening. The Federation Council watched in stunned silence as she disappeared into the impossible space. Meanwhile, in the research division, the alien scientists were beginning to understand. They reviewed Earth's cultural history, its art, literature, philosophy, and science. They saw how humans constantly operated between reason and imagination, never fully committing to either. "Your species embraces contradiction," said a Federation psychologist, sounding almost envious. "You can believe in science while appreciating mythology. You can know something is fiction, yet be emotionally moved by it. We call it suspension of disbelief," Dr. Lee explained. "It's essential to human creativity." On the screen, they watched as Anna moved through the artifact's interior. She wasn't just surviving the impossible geometry. She was navigating it intuitively, as if the contradictions made perfect sense to her human mind. She's not fighting the paradoxes, First Officer Gray realized. She's accepting them. The rest of the human team followed Anna into the artifact. Each moved differently, finding their own way to interpret the impossible space. Some used logic, others intuition. Together, they progressed deeper than any probe or alien explorer had ever managed. The Federation scientists watched with growing understanding. The evolution they had always seen as progress, the move toward perfect logic and efficiency, had actually cost them something precious: cognitive flexibility. Throughout our history, Dr. Lee told them, humans have faced extinction many times. We survived not just through technology, but through imagination. The ability to envision solutions that didn't yet exist. The High Counselor rose from his seat as the implications became clear. Then the artifact isn't just a test, it's a warning. On the screens, Anna and her team reached what appeared to be the artifact's center, a swirling nexus of energy and information. As Anna reached out toward it, the entire structure began to pulse with new light. The greatest challenge, the High Counselor said softly, was never technological advancement. It was maintaining the balance between logic and imagination, even as we grew more powerful. And in that moment, humanity's unique place in the cosmos became clear. They were not the most advanced species, but they had retained something the others had lost along the way. Something the creators of the artifact had deemed essential for whatever was coming next. Alarms blared throughout the research station. Captain Miller ran to the command center, where screens display the artifact pulsing with unprecedented energy. Since Anna and her team had reached its center, the structure had begun a dramatic transformation. "What's happening?" Miller demanded, his eyes fixed on the swirling patterns that now engulfed the entire artifact. First Officer Gray stood rigid at the monitoring station. "The artifact is expanding. Its energy signature has increased 1,000-fold in the last hour." From within the artifact, Anna's voice came through the communication system, distorted but audible. "We've reached some kind of control center. The artifact is responding to our presence, but we're not controlling the transformation." The images from inside showed the human team standing in a chamber that defied physical laws. Surfaces flowed like liquid while maintaining solid form. Light bent in impossible ways, creating patterns that seemed to communicate directly with the human mind rather than the eyes. Back at Federation headquarters, panic was spreading. The High Council convened an emergency session as reports flooded in from across the sector. The artifact's energy pulses were disrupting nearby systems, interfering with ship navigation and communication networks. "This is exactly what we feared," declared Admiral Stern, the Federation's military leader. "The humans have activated an ancient weapon. We must destroy it before it's too late." The council chamber erupted in debate. Many agreed with the Admiral's assessment. The artifact posed an unknown threat that could endanger countless worlds. Others urged caution, arguing that destruction might trigger an even worse outcome. On Earth, governments scrambled to understand the situation. The planet's leaders received a direct transmission from the Federation Council. The artifact would be destroyed in 12 hours unless the humans could prove it wasn't a threat. Dr. Lee, watching the artifact's transformation with his team of researchers, shook his head in frustration. "They're missing the point. The artifact isn't a weapon, it's communicating." "Communicating what?" asked First Officer Gray, who had been working closely with the human scientists. "I'm not sure yet," Dr. Lee admitted, "but destroying it would be like burning a library before we've read any of the books." Inside the artifact, Anna and her team were beginning to understand its purpose. The impossible geometry, the paradoxes, the tests of creativity. All were designed not to confuse but to prepare. "It's not a weapon," Anna reported back to Captain Miller. "It's a tool. Maybe the most important tool ever created." Before she could explain further, Admiral Stern's voice broke through the communication channel. "This is a direct order from Federation Command. All personnel must evacuate the research stone immediately. The artifact will be neutralized. Captain Miller's face hardened. They're sending destroyers. We have less than 12 hours. You can't destroy it. Anna's voice was desperate. We're on the verge of understanding. The artifact is trying to share knowledge with us, but it needed to find minds capable of receiving it. The Federation battle fleet arrived sooner than expected. 5 massive warships, each capable of reducing a small moon to dust. They took position around the artifact, maintaining a safe distance from its pulsing energy field. On the research station, Captain Miller faced an impossible choice. His orders were clear, but he had seen enough to believe Anna might be right. I need more time. Anna pleaded from within the artifact. We're starting to understand the patterns. They're not random. They're a language, but not one based on words or mathematics. It speaks in concepts, in connections between ideas. Admiral Stern appeared on the main screen of the research station. Captain Miller, you have 1 hour to evacuate all personnel. After that, we open fire. Dr. Lee rushed into the command center, clutching the data tablet. Captain, look at this. The artifact's energy patterns. They match human brainwave patterns during creative thinking. It's not attacking. It's trying to establish a connection. First Officer Gray studied the data. If this is true, destroying the artifact would be a terrible mistake. Miller nodded, his decision made. He opened a channel to both the battle fleet and Earth. This is Captain Tom Miller. I am formally requesting a delay of the destruction order. The artifact is not a weapon. It's the greatest repository of knowledge we've ever encountered. Admiral Stern's face showed no emotion. Request denied. The risk is too great. Then we stay, Miller declared. My crew and I will remain with the human team inside the artifact. If you fire, you'll have to destroy us too. The countdown continued as humans on Earth, and throughout the Federation watched in horror. The battle fleet's weapons powered up, targeting the mysterious structure that humanity alone had begun to understand. The greatest crisis wasn't the artifact itself, but the fear it had revealed. Fear of the unknown. Fear of that which could not be controlled by pure logic. And in less than an hour, that fear might destroy humanity's greatest discovery. Tension filled the air as the Federation warships held position, weapons charged and aimed at the artifact. Inside the mysterious structure, Anna and her team worked frantically to decipher the patterns that swirled around them. We have less than 40 minutes. Captain Miller's voice came through their communication devices. Whatever you're going to discover, find it now. Anna stood in the center of the impossible chamber, where reality seemed to fold in on itself. The human team had spread out, each trying different approaches to communicate with the artifact. Some used mathematics, others art or music. A few even attempted meditation to sync their thoughts with the flowing patterns. It's trying to share something, Anna said, her hands moving through the light patterns. But it's too much information at once. Our minds can't process it this way. Mike, the artist, approached her with an insight. What if we're not supposed to understand it all? What if we just need to accept it? The words triggered something in Anna's mind. The artifact had been testing their ability to accept paradoxes and contradictions. Perhaps the solution wasn't to analyze but to embrace. Everyone stopped trying to decode it. She called out to the team. Instead, just experience it. Let it in. Skeptical but desperate, the humans relaxed their analytical approach. They began to simply observe and feel the patterns flowing around them. As they did, something remarkable happened. The chaotic energies started to organize themselves, forming structures that felt deeply familiar yet entirely new. It's responding, whispered Anna. It's adjusting to our minds. Back on the research station, Dr. Lee noticed changes in the brain scans of the humans inside the artifact. Their neural patterns are synchronizing with the artifact's energy fields, he reported to Captain Miller. But not in a harmful way. It's more like a conversation. 6 months had passed since the confrontation at the artifact. The research station that once orbited it had grown into a sprawling complex where beings from across the galaxy came to learn and study. The artifact itself had stabilized, its once chaotic energy now flowing in harmonious patterns that illuminated the surrounding space with a gentle, pulsing light. In the main observation deck, Captain Miller stood beside First Officer Gray, watching as shuttles arrived carrying representatives from dozens of worlds. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Gray asked, his silver skin reflecting the artifact's glow. Miller shook his head. "Not in my wildest dreams. And that, I suppose, is exactly the point." The discovery had transformed galactic society. The knowledge shared by the artifact wasn't technological. There were no new weapons, no faster engines, no miracle cures. Instead, it offered something more profound. A new way of thinking, a perspective that bridged the gap between logic and intuition. Anna had become the head of the joint human-alien research team. Today, she was preparing to welcome the newest group of students to what had become known as the Synthesis Academy. As she walked through the station's corridors, aliens and humans alike greeted her with respect. "The third cohort looks promising," said Dr. Reed, falling into step beside her. "We have students from 15 previously unrepresented worlds." Anna nodded, including 3 from species that initially voted to destroy the artifact. They entered the grand lecture hall where hundreds of beings had gathered, some humanoid, others utterly alien in form, yet all united by a common purpose: to learn what humans had accidentally retained and what the artifact wished to share. "Welcome," Anna began, her voice carrying through the hall. "You are here because your worlds recognize the value of what we discovered. The artifact has shown us that evolution isn't just about becoming more efficient or more intelligent in traditional ways. It's about maintaining balance between logic and creativity, between knowledge and wonder." Many of the alien students struggled with the concepts at first. Their civilizations had spent thousands of years prioritizing rational thought, eliminating what they saw as inefficient cognitive processes. Learning to think creatively again was like rehabilitating an atrophied muscle. Humans, in turn, learned from the aliens' disciplined approaches to problem-solving and their vast stores of accumulated knowledge. It was a true exchange, neither side dominating, but both enriching each other. On Earth, the impact was equally profound. Humanity's place in the galaxy had been transformed overnight. No longer seen as primitive newcomers, they were now recognized as having preserved something precious that older civilizations had lost. In the Federation Council, the High Counselor addressed the assembled representatives. "For millennia, we measured advancement by technological achievement and logical refinement. We were wrong. The artifact has shown us that true evolution requires balance. Humanity reminded us of what we had forgotten." Back at the Academy, Anna led a small group to the artifact's central chamber, the nexus where she had first experienced the profound shift in perception. The room still defied conventional physics, but now it felt welcoming rather than disorienting. "What we discovered here wasn't just knowledge," she explained to the students. "It was a reminder that the universe is both rational and mysterious, both comprehensible and bewildering. The most advanced civilizations aren't those that eliminate contradiction. They're those that embrace it." A young alien student raised a tentative hand. "My species eliminated art and fiction 10,000 years ago. We thought they were distractions from truth." Anna smiled gently. "And now?" "Now we're learning to dream again," the student replied. "It's difficult but beautiful." As the tour concluded, Captain Miller joined Anna at the observation window overlooking the artifact. "The Federation's changing," he said. "Worlds that were purely focused on technological advancement are rediscovering their creative traditions. Species that haven't produced art in thousands of years are experiencing a renaissance." Anna nodded. "And humans are learning too, finding balance between our creativity and discipline." Together, they watched as the artifact pulsed with light, communicating in its wordless language with anyone open to receiving its message. It wasn't just a repository of ancient wisdom. It was a living bridge between different ways of thinking, different ways of being. The greatest legacy wasn't the knowledge itself, but the understanding that true wisdom comes not from eliminating contradictions, but from embracing them. Not from having all the answers, but from asking better questions. Humanity hadn't succeeded where aliens failed because humans were superior. They had succeeded because they were still becoming, still evolving, still wondering, still balancing on the edge between what is and what might be. And in that ongoing journey, rather than any final destination, they had found their place among the stars. First Officer Gray watched the scans with wonder. "It's beautiful," he admitted, "like nothing I've ever seen." Miller opened a channel to Admiral Stern. "Admiral, we need more time. Something unprecedented is happening." "Your time is almost up, Captain," came the cold reply. 20 minutes remaining. Inside the artifact, Anna suddenly gasped. The swirling energies had coalesced into a form she could almost comprehend, not with her eyes but with her mind. It wasn't information being transmitted. It was a perspective, a way of seeing reality that transcended ordinary perception. "It's not a test," she breathed. "It's a gift." She reached out, not with her hands but with her thoughts, and accepted what the artifact offered. In that moment, understanding flooded through her, not as facts or data, but as a profound shift in consciousness. "I see it now," she said, her voice filled with awe. The artifact wasn't left by some ancient alien race. It's a tool created by a civilization that evolved beyond physical form. They didn't want to test our technology or our intelligence. They wanted to find species that could still evolve. The other humans began to experience similar revelations, each in their own way. Their faces showed wonder, shock, and finally, deep understanding. Anna opened her communication channel to the research station. "Captain, we need to broadcast what we're experiencing to both the Federation and Earth. The artifact isn't dangerous. It's a bridge to something greater." Miller didn't hesitate. "How?" "Connect our neural patterns directly to the Federation's communication network. Let them see what we're seeing." It was a desperate plan, but with only minutes remaining before the warships would open fire, desperation was all they had. Dr. Lee quickly established the connection, routing the merged human artifact neural patterns through the station's communication array. Throughout the Federation, on thousands of worlds, beings of all species suddenly received fragmentary impressions of what the humans were experiencing. Flashes of insight, glimpses of a perspective that transcended ordinary thought. It wasn't complete understanding, but it was enough to create wonder rather than fear. In the flagship of the battle fleet, Admiral Stern himself froze as the images washed over him. For the first time in centuries, his highly logical mind encountered something it couldn't categorize or control, and found itself expanding rather than rejecting. "Stand down," he ordered, his voice quiet but firm. "All ships, power down weapons." On the main Federation communication channel, Admiral Stern addressed Captain Miller. "You have your time, Captain. It seems we have much to learn from your species." Inside the artifact, Anna smiled as the humans continued their communion with something far greater than themselves. The geometric patterns around them had stabilized, no longer chaotic, but harmonious, no longer threatening but inviting. "This isn't the end of the challenge," she realized. "It's just the beginning." The artifact had found what it sought, not a species that had all the answers, but one that knew how to keep asking questions. Not a civilization that had conquered the universe, but one that still wondered at its mysteries. The greatest solution wasn't to solve the puzzle, but to recognize that some puzzles were meant to transform the solver.